Hi everybody, this is Meteorologist Jonathan Erdman from weather.com. When we think of a classic plains tornado outbreak in May, the first thing that comes to mind is the May 3rd, 1999 tornado outbreak, which of course produced a tornado that leveled parts of the Oklahoma City metropolitan area. We've got a map up here which shows the tornado tracks from that day in central Oklahoma. And you can see a tornado that initially started near Cement, Oklahoma, tracked just north of Chickasha, and then touched down once again on a track that has become infamous through Bridge Creek, just north of Newcastle, Oklahoma, and then tracked through Moore and parts of the Oklahoma City metropolitan area and did, in some areas, F5 damage. By the way, maybe in a less famous sense, of course, given the enormity of that event, there were also quite a few tornadoes in northern Oklahoma and parts of northwest Oklahoma. As you can see by these tracks here, there were a couple F4 tornadoes in north of Oklahoma City, north of the Guthrie area, up toward Mulhall, and then just south of Perry. And oh, by the way, there was also a killer tornado, an F4, that touched down in the Wichita, Kansas metropolitan area on May 3rd, 1999. Now, why am I bringing this all up today? Well, what I wanted to do is compare the weather maps during May 3rd, 1999, compare those with the forecast weather maps for this current severe weather outbreak on Tuesday, and see if there's any comparisons that can be drawn. So the first map we'll look at is an upper-level jet stream wind analysis. Now, this is pretty busy. I'll point out to you a couple states here. Here's Oklahoma here, here's Kansas here, here's Texas here. And what you're seeing by the colors are jet stream level wind speeds. And basically, when you see strong jet cores like this, called jet streaks, punching in to an area of warm, humid, unstable air, that is a prime signature for severe weather. Now, what's notable is this analysis was done while the severe weather outbreak, the tornado outbreak in Oklahoma was going on May 3rd, 1999. And notice in this map, most of the jet stream level energy was hanging way back over the Great Basin, Pacific Northwest, and parts of the desert Southwest. Notice the strongest wind speeds are hanging way back. There is some jet stream level weak impulses here, but most of the energy was hanging back. Now let's move forward and compare this to the map that is forecast for Tuesday evening, the jet stream level winds. Similar contours. And you'll note here that this jet streak, while not nearly as strong as the upper level energy, is actually punching in to Texas and Oklahoma during the time that thunderstorms are forecast to erupt over the central and southern plains. So this is quite a difference. The jet stream level energy is punching in during the outbreak as opposed to hanging back during May 3rd, 1999. Now let's look at surface weather maps. Courtesy of unisys.weather.com, here's an archived surface weather map taken about 7 p.m. on May 3rd, 1999. And what I want to point out here, here's Oklahoma, here's Texas. This hatch line here is basically what's called the dry line. It's a line that is well known in the plain states, well known as severe weather forecasters, separating dry air to the west, warm and humid air to the east, and it's a typical touching off point for severe thunderstorms in the plain states. Now, just a couple observations. These numbers here, this is temperature, and this is dew point here for Oklahoma City. And so we look at dew point as a measure of the surface moisture content, if you will. So dew points in the 60s are pretty moist, not overly humid, but pretty moist. So we had a 64 dew point in Wichita, 68 in Oklahoma City. That looks like after an initial thunderstorm had moved through before the tornadic supercell had come through. 64 down here in West Texas near Abilene. And you note behind the dry line, dew points were generally in the 30s and 40s for the most part in, say, in the Texas Panhandle down toward Lubbock, Texas. And also note that the wind direction shown by these wind barbs, the winds are actually going from south-southwest to north-northeast. So the winds aren't actually plowing into the dry line from west to east. Keeping that in mind, let's look at the current setup. And let's start with the current dew point map. And we're going to scroll down here. What we have, look at the dew point contrast, we're taping this at midday Tuesday. Look at the contrast here. We have about a 65 dew point in Wichita. That's pretty similar, but look at a 70 dew point in Oklahoma City. A lot of 70s dew points over northwest Texas and central Oklahoma. So it's much more moist at the surface, which fuels instability in the atmosphere. Actually, this moisture extends to a couple thousand feet up in the atmosphere and is quite a bit more moist than it was on May 3rd, 1999. So the atmosphere, at least from a potential standpoint, seems to be more energetic and potentially more unstable in this case than it actually was in May 3rd, 1999. Now, what we're not saying is we cannot forecast exactly where supercell thunderstorms will go, where potentially dangerous tornadoes will track. We're not saying this is going to be another May 3rd, 1999 in Moore, Oklahoma. We just don't know that. But the potential is there in the atmosphere for an explosive tornado outbreak. And it just goes to show you that this potential actually looks even greater than it did on May 3rd, 1999. Now let's look at another parameter. This is courtesy of the NOAA Storm Prediction Center. They have a terrific analysis page. And one parameter we look at for tornadic supercells versus just supercells that may rotate aloft is the low-level wind shear in the atmosphere, the spin by shifting winds in the lowest few 100 feet or maybe 1,000 feet in the atmosphere. The more spin at the low levels, when a thunderstorm updraft acts on that spin, it can take that spin and it can tilt it and then stretch it, and therefore you'd have more rotation in the lower levels of the atmosphere. And so what we're looking at is an analysis of that low-level spin, and you can see right here the rather high values of low-level spin we're already seeing today in parts of south central and southeast Kansas, parts of central and northeast Oklahoma. So again, this is another parameter that has us particularly worried for a tornado outbreak today in parts of Kansas and Oklahoma. So now let's look at a timeline. Let's try and give you a timeline of the threat. We're starting, this is a model forecast plot, so the green is showing areas of precipitation, and I'll draw your attention to where the thunderstorms are erupting. By Tuesday afternoon and evening, they're going to erupt roughly along the I-35 corridor from around Wichita and maybe points north, down through central Oklahoma and parts of North Texas as well. So that's where the initial thunderstorms are going to erupt, along that dry line. As we go through Tuesday night, the thunderstorms will continue to sweep into eastern Kansas, eastern Oklahoma, and far north Texas, and head toward the Ozarks, again with the potential for tornadoes, damaging winds, and hail. That tornado threat may, as typically does, kind of slacken off a bit as we head toward the midnight hours, but again, there will be heavy thunderstorms, severe thunderstorms with heavy rainfall, unfortunately moving into areas like Joplin, Missouri, parts of northeast Oklahoma and northwest Arkansas that had seen flooding rain Monday morning. We'll see more heavy rain during the wee morning hours Wednesday morning. And then a bit of complicated setup for Wednesday. That initial band of thunderstorms then sweeps eastward into Missouri and Illinois, perhaps even Indiana during the morning hours Wednesday. But then we expect another line of severe thunderstorms to explosively develop in parts of Missouri, perhaps southern Iowa, headed southward into Arkansas and northeast Texas and northwest Louisiana, and that line will race eastward overnight. Again, the threat is there for tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds Wednesday in parts of the mid-Mississippi Valley and the lower Missouri Valley. So places like St. Louis, Memphis, Paducah, Kentucky will be under the threat of severe thunderstorms and possible tornadoes on Wednesday. Then as we go to Thursday, that threat then shifts into the Ohio Valley, although that threat should lessen a bit as the upper level energy weakens, but there'll still be a decent severe weather threat from the Ohio Valley, possibly parts of the interior northeast into the southeast on Thursday. So let me take you around on weather.com and show you where you can find this information. You can see we're featuring the tornado outbreak and the tornado aftermath quite prominently right now on weather.com. You can click on the Tuesday's dangerous tornado threat. We run down and show where the highest risk of tornadoes is today. And you can see this is where the Storm Prediction Center is outlined their area of risk. Wichita, Oklahoma City, and Tulsa are definitely under the gun as far as tornadic thunderstorms Tuesday afternoon and evening, and that threat extends eastward into the Ozarks Tuesday night. We also explain some of these very same ingredients that are in play in this article: moisture, instability, wind shear, surface boundaries, and with all that in place, a cap holding down the atmosphere until thunderstorms explosively develop later in the day. Elsewhere on weather.com, you can also find the latest news and human impact photo slideshows of the Joplin tornado. You could also find perspective on how deadly a year this has been in the United States. When's the last time we've seen so many tornado deaths? When's the last time we've seen a single tornado, as it happened in Joplin, produce this many fatalities? You can see that there also on weather.com. We also have a link to Dr. Forbes' exclusive Toricon Index, which he's rated a 9 in parts of Kansas and Oklahoma. Check out exactly what your threat is in your area by clicking on the Torcon link on weather.com. And then finally, later in the day, we'll put up a severe weather tracking page, which will have the latest Twitter updates. It will have the latest thunderstorm forecast, the latest watches, warnings, and radar, all from one page. So look for our tornado severe weather tracker to pop up later Tuesday afternoon right here on weather.com. Click on that link. You can follow the severe all the way through the event. We'll be providing updates for you. You can also check out some of the amazing video that we have here. You can see some of the video thumbnails we have here. We have a lot of video, and if you scroll below, you can click on the most recent video tab and you can get the latest incredible video from the Joplin tornado. Also, watch weather.com tonight. You'll get exclusive analysis from severe weather expert Dr. Greg Forbes. Dr. Forbes surveyed tornadoes during the 1974 super outbreak. This man knows what he's talking about, and you can trust his analysis to keep you safe in this tornado outbreak. Remember, this is the time where you need to have a plan. If you live in a mobile home, find another place you can go to take safe shelter if a tornado warning is issued. Take every single tornado warning today seriously. There could be intense, long-lived tornadoes capable of destructive winds, unfortunately, such as we've already seen this week in parts of the central U.S. Thanks, everybody.